Hi everyone, and welcome to another First Chapter Friday. My name is Fernanda and I'm one of the children's librarians here at the Alameda Free Library. And for today's book, we're going to be reading the first chapter of You Owe Me One Universe. And this book was written by Chad Lucas. It's a really good book that touches on a couple of topics such as anxiety and depression. It follows a character named Brian who's going through a lot of array of emotions. He's seeing a therapist, a family member of his is in prison, so he's going through a lot of different things. Along the way, he has good friends, and it's a really good read. I'll be reading the first chapter today with you guys. Chapter 1 is called Life, Part 2. Brian. I wouldn't do well in jail. Just visiting stresses me out. Everything about the place, beige concrete, tiny windows, guards in heavy vests, screamed, "You're stuck here." I knew that was the point, but feeling stuck was one of the dozen things that set off my anxiety hyperdrive. The second time I visited my dad here, I got dizzy, started sweating buckets, and nearly barfed. A correctional officer had to call a nurse, and it turned into this whole embarrassing scene. I hated embarrassing scenes almost as much as I hated panic attacks. So put them together, and it was Brian's day perfect nightmare. But I still showed up most Sunday afternoons because it was the only way to see my dad. I made it through the first steps okay this time. Checked in, got through the scanner to make sure I wasn't smuggling anything, followed an officer to the visiting room where Dad and I would have an hour together. My breathing would shallow and my face tingled, but that was only average nerves and not full panic. Waiting was the hardest part. My brain went to weird places until Dad showed. Worst case scenarios, jail edition. The jail will go into lockdown and I won't see Dad. Someone jumped him and he's bleeding out while I sit here waiting. The guards have been possessed by murderous alien spores and I'll have to use my wits to rescue Dad and stage a daring escape. My therapist, Dr. Bender, told me it was okay that I couldn't always stop my worst thoughts. Most people couldn't. But she said when I started going bleak, I should imagine the most absurd, worst case scenario I could imagine. Sometimes this worked. In my mind, I was crawling through air ducts like I was in Die Hard when the door opened and Dad stepped in. He crossed the room and pulled me into a hug. He never used to be a hugger, but now he squeezed me like he was trying to imprint me into his chest. I hugged him back just as hard. Eventually, he let go and held me at arm's length. "Sheesh, B-man, you grow another inch this week? You'll be ducking through doorways soon." He was exaggerating, but I'd grown 4 inches in 5 months since I turned 13. I had to buy all new pants for school. Dad's eyes drifted towards the door. "Your mom's not here?" I swallowed. No, she was going to come, but Richie, I get it." Dad forced a smile. "Can't blame him. I'd rather not be here either." If he was upset that my 10-year-old brother refused to visit again, he hid it well. We sat. My eyes drifted to the officers by the door and the other families huddled at tables with their loved ones. I'd been coming for 4 months and I still wasn't used to the setup. All these people and emotions in one room with hardly any privacy. That's another thing you didn't really get in jail. So, how's school? Dad prompted, and I tried to tune everyone else out. Ezra and I got a perfect grade on our presentation in social studies, I told him. Miss Wirth loved it. Ezra did most of the talking, but I read 2 paragraphs out loud and didn't faint. He grinned. Congratulations, B-Man. I'm proud of you. That was a big achievement for me. I still struggled with super awkward weirdo syndrome. That's what I called social anxiety. Dr. Bender liked my nickname so much she told me she shared it with other kids. But I made some friends over the summer, and I wasn't as terrified as I was when I started junior high last year. The hour passed too quickly, and before I knew it, Dad was hugging me again. This time, he held on longer, like he was stretching out every second he could. When he finally let go, he immediately turned towards the exit. He never looked back. I don't think he liked me seeing how sad he was when our time was up. I still knew. But I got it. I didn't like watching him head back to his cell alone either. The pre-visit anxiety was hard enough, but the ache in my chest when I left was worse. We were studying percentages in math, and I figured out that an hour was 0.595% of a week. That's how much of my time I got to spend with Dad. Less than 1%. He was serving a 12-month sentence, so this was our life until next July. I knew 1 year was a small percentage of the average person's life, but right now it felt like forever. Some people might say he deserved it. He did help run an illegal cannabis operation, even though he never hurt anyone, and cannabis would be legal in Canada this time next year. But I didn't know who it was helping to keep him locked up. Certainly not us. I shivered and zipped up my coat as I stepped back into the cold November air. We were into the bleak part of the fall, when the leaves had fallen and winter was just around the corner. Gabe was waiting for me. I climbed in the back seat of his car next to Ezra. "How'd it go?" Gabe asked. "Fine, the usual." "Want to talk about it?" Brittany asked from the passenger seat. "Not really." They didn't push. Ezra handed me a paper cup. "Hope you're cool with hot chocolate. Brittany wouldn't let me buy you anything with coffee." Brittany glanced back. "I'm still not over the time I made you a latte and you started yelling about parallel realities. I can't handle caffeinated Brian." "No one can handle caffeinated Brian," Gabe said. "The world's not ready." Ezra laughed. Ezra had curly black hair and stylish glasses and the best laugh in the world. As Gabe drove, he and Brittany haggled over music. Ezra teamed up with Brittany for the win, as usual. By the time we reached the McKay Bridge, headed back to Halifax, they were singing along to some indie band they both loved. Gabe pretended he was annoyed, but it was impossible not to enjoy Ezra and Brittany singing. Ezra told the melody and Brittany sang harmony, and they sounded amazing. Gabe and Brittany were high school seniors, while Ezra was in 8th grade with me. These 3 really kept me afloat when the universe collapsed a few months ago and Dad went to jail. They still kept me afloat now. Gabe and Brittany dropped us off at Ezra's house. I tried to stifle my yawns while Ezra fixed up a snack, but he noticed. "I need a nap." "You need a nap, don't you?" I yawned again. "Sorry, I'm so pathetic." He tossed an Oreo at me. No biggie, go ahead. I couldn't help it. Visiting Dad wore me out, even though I was glad I did it. I headed to the basement and flopped onto Ezra's bed. The Ezra-ness of his room was always comforting. Band posters on the wall, guitars on the stand in the corner, and the smell of his coconut-scented hair gel on the pillow. I usually slept well there. Except today, I had a nightmare, or a napmare, I guess. Dad was trapped in a cell filling up with water. It was nearly to the ceiling and he was running out of air. I found Mom and begged her to help me, but she was asleep. I shook her, but she wouldn't wake up. I must have been yelling in my sleep. When I jolted awake, Ezra was at the edge of the bed. I sat up and buried my face in my hands, waiting for the echoes of my fear to fade. Ezra put a hand on my back. Did you know in 2004, a Dave Matthews Band tour bus emptied its sewage tank off a bridge in Chicago right as a boat was passing underneath? He said. A bunch of people got drenched in 800 pounds of pure nastiness. I blinked. What? Are you making this up? No, it's true, I swear. You can look it up. Ezra squeezed my shoulder. So whenever you wake up from a nightmare, you can take a deep breath and remind yourself, at least I'm not covered in poo from Dave Matthews Band. He said this completely straight-faced. Then his lip twitched and we both lost it. When I started laughing, I felt like 87% better. This was peak Ezra. He knew how to make me laugh and get out of my own head. And for some reasons I didn't totally understand, he also had a crush on me. My feelings for him were complicated, but things were complicated with me. But I'd always been thinking lately that I needed to figure out what I really felt. For Ezra's sake. He deserved that. He deserved the world. Mom said she'll pick up some takeout on her way home, he said. You feel like pizza or chips or fish? Fish and chips, I said, surprising him. Usually I went with doesn't matter or you pick. He grinned. Feeling decisive? Trying. He stood and I untangled myself from his bedsheets. Be more decisive was a sub-goal on my multi-step plan for surviving life, part 2. And I wanted to start with my best friend. And that's the end of the first chapter of You Owe Me One Universe. I hope you found the first chapter interesting. Be sure to look up this book on our catalog to see where it is available. If you have any questions, like always, you can always ask a librarian. I'll see you guys for the next First Chapter Fridays. Bye.